Bob Marley once said in his song Trench Town Rock, "One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain." And I believe this really speaks to why music is important in our culture. Music makes us feel good, it gives us feelings of meaning and strength, and it allows us to express our thoughts in a healthy and powerful way that can even change the course of history itself. Music in the 60s, especially during the civil rights movement, had themes of freedom of thought, positive youthful change that could bring about change in the world, black power, the politics of revolution, and others that extended beyond the civil rights movement. According to the article Music in the Civil Rights Movement, published in the Civil Rights History Project by the American Folklife Center, people involved in the civil rights movement sang these songs for multiple purposes: to motivate them through long marches, for psychological strength against harassment and brutality, and sometimes simply to pass the time while waiting for something to happen. Understanding music from the civil rights movement and the 60s overall will help us to better understand the power of music and how music can be a powerful voice for the people in serious situations. First, I will discuss the music and lyrics from the early 1960s. Next, I will discuss the music and lyrics from the mid 1960s. And finally, I will discuss the music and lyrics from the late 1960s. Let us begin. The music of the early 60s had themes of black power, the politics of revolution, and the power of youthful voices. The rise of soul, funk, gospel, and other African American genres of music emphasized these themes, mainly through songs from those genres having an emphasis on the power of overcoming obstacles and enacting big change through the power of youthful voices, and working together to make change. In fact, T.V. Reed, author of The Art of Protest, Culture and Activism from the Civil Rights Movement to the Streets of Seattle, songs were everywhere in the movement, in meetings, on the picket lines, on marches, at sit-ins, in jail, everywhere. Music, especially as embedded in a rich church culture and later in black pop music, formed the communication network of the movement, and they all also expressed the soul of the movement, linking its spirit to centuries of resistance to slavery and oppression. Now that we've discussed this, let us move further into the music of the mid to late 60s. The music of the mid to late 60s had themes of sexuality, drugs, and the Vietnam War. In terms of sexuality, in the mid to late 60s, there was a big movement as part of the hippie movement that emphasized the idea of sexual freedom for all and the power of the women's movement that was also evolving at that time. And so sexuality was a big part of music at the time as well. Psychedelic drugs was also huge, especially with the hippie movement. Psychedelic drugs like acid and other various drugs that make you, quote, trip balls was a major part of music then as well. On top of this, the Vietnam War was a raging political battle that was being faced in the United States by many generations and split families, and songs were a major component of that also. So today, first, we talked about the music of the early 1960s and learned that music then had influences from the civil rights movement as well as for the power of change. Then we discussed the mid to late 60s and how music from then had influences from major historical events and from the hippie culture that was rising at the time. So, understanding the music from the civil rights movement and the 60s overall will help us to better understand the power of music and how music can be a powerful voice of the people in serious situations, especially when influenced by major historical events. I'd like for us to conclude to that quote from the beginning from Bob Marley. One good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain. I'm saying that because that quote now resonates with us in its meaning, especially that music, especially since music can represent the opinions of thoughts of the masses in a powerful way, especially in times of crisis. And thus we can apply this quote to the meaning. Thus we can apply this quote's meaning to modern music. And when you listen to music now, I'd like us to pay attention to the lyrical meanings of the lyrics from then. Because music has a powerful voice, regardless of which decade or era you listen to it in. And the lyrics of today still emphasize that power of change and the power of the people to make change. Thank you for listening.